Welcome to our program, Coach-to-Coach. Today's guest is Lucy Atkinson. Lucy's a certified life coach and hypnotherapist and the founder of The Gentle Path, a monthly membership for calm, confidence, and growth. Thanks for joining us today, Lucy. It's great to see you.
Hi, Greg. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I love starting these off with asking what first sparked your interest in coaching?
I worked, my first job, or my first sort of main grown-up job, I worked as a teacher for a really long time with children with special needs, mainly
Mm,
autism. And that involved working with the kids themselves and their parents, my team of staff, other teachers, multi-agency teams. And a lot of that included a lot of coaching style interactions that I really enjoyed. Um, yeah, I think I really loved working with people to get the best out of them in the situations they were in. At the time, I was very busy. I was a member of the British competition climbing team, which
mm,
is why I visited Canada. I was climbing over there. And through that, I got a really clear idea of the value of coaching in a physical and a mental and emotional sense.
mm,
So after I had my kids, I left teaching. I wanted to be a little bit more flexible around my family. And I became a hypnobirthing teacher first, actually, and then a hypnotherapist. There were sort of these steps that I went through. And what happened working with hypnotherapy clients was that I was working really successfully with a number of clients who resolved the presenting issue through hypnotherapy.
mm.
And then they just kind of went, well, that was great. Can you help me with all this other stuff in my life? And it was clear that, people liked the way that I was working with them. Hypnotherapy is brilliant for that real focusing, really dialing in on a specific issue. But then I developed into the more coaching. I did lots of coaching trainings and certification. So I widened that kind of set of tools in my toolbox. And where I am now, I just really love being able to use my particular blend of skills to help the people that I'm working with, wherever they're at and whatever it is they're needing.
Mm. I love it. I'm curious when you mentioned the climbing thing. Do you use that in your coaching, like as a metaphor, or do you relate to that in any particular way?
I do quite often. Obviously, if I work with quite a lot of sports people in my
Mm,
coaching because naturally I have that background. But in general as well, and I've just written a blog that was really well received. It came up in one of the retreats that I run locally, and it's this idea that when I was competing, it was really terrifying because, I think the first World Cup I did, I was in isolation for 8 hours, and I was so terrified. This is long before I did any of this actual work,
mm,
and I was absolutely terrified. And I came out and had to perform at my best in front of these people. I felt people were watching me. And also, I wasn't the best on the British team. I'm not going to take anything away. I was on the British team. I deserved to be there. I had an amazing time, but I wasn't the strongest woman. I am not the tallest. Um, and so I was kind of in the middle of the British team in terms of my actual performance. And so I was never going to be on a podium. I was never going to be world champ or European champ even. And I really felt that. I felt that I was surrounded by people that were stronger than me.
mm.
And of course, from an NLP point of view, from a coaching perspective, if you walk out into that arena and look at that climb in front of you and think, wow, I'm not strong enough to do that, then that's what happens, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And so what I learned to do very naturally, I'm quite playful in my work now. I always have been in everything I've done. I would pretend to be strong just for a minute.
Mm,
So I would stand there and I'd go, okay, I can do those moves because you plot it out in your head first.
sure.
And then I think, that's like a really powerful move there. And I'll just pretend to be strong for a minute.
Mm,
And people really resonate with that. I think that's a great metaphor for lots of things in life where if you are faced with a situation where you maybe feel out of your depth or you have a bit of imposter syndrome, maybe, you don't have to switch it around and go, no, I can do this. I'm the best. You can go, I can do this. Just this one thing, just this one step.
yeah, yeah, I love that. Well, and it strikes me too as um, a way to take action on just that. Like, what is that immediate next handhold I have to get, or foothold, or
Yeah,
task to accomplish? And you don't have to think about getting to the top of that course. It's just
exactly.
what is the very next. I mean, I did my coach training with Jamie Smart, and he always talks about what is the very next step that you can take.
Yeah,
Just focus on that and do that. And then when
yeah.
that's done, now what's
Do
the
the
next
next.
step? And
Yeah,
it's a it's remarkably simple,
yeah,
and it's also somewhat remarkable how most of us forget that it can be that simple.
Yeah, when you look at the big picture and you think of all the steps you need to do, it is overwhelming and it's
Yeah,
easy to get disheartened. But yeah, when you're just looking at the next step, what's the next action? That
yeah,
is so much easier to get your head around and then to carry out.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that you mentioned sports too. I do some coaching with some athletes, but I'm aspiring to get much more into athletics. I just watched there's a Netflix series called The Playbook where they were interviewing um, uh, the soccer coach Jose Marino and the guy, I forget his name now, who coached Serena Williams in tennis and things. Anyway, it's just
Yeah,
fascinating to hear how a lot of the stuff that I've been learning and using in my own coaching practice, you can see these world class coaches in the top of their sports using similar things with their athletes and so on.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious about your practice, and I mean, you mentioned a bunch of different things that you have going on, retreats and hypnotherapy into coaching, and mentioned NLP. So yeah, I'm really curious to know about your practice and what you're doing and kind of who you're working with.
Yeah, I'm one of those. I think there's a lot of us, we get really excited. I've done all those kind of certifications and trainings
Yeah.
because it's just so exciting to learn. But I boil it all down. I mainly work with women in midlife,
Mm,
although not exclusively by any means. So the youngest client I worked with was 6 years old, and the oldest was 79.
mm,
He was interesting. He was a hypnotherapy client and he'd had a lifelong fear of cats since he was a toddler. His first memory, he was scared of cats. And working with him was great because he's not the usual sort of person I work with, but he was phenomenal. He went off on a trip to Thailand, and that in Thailand there's cats everywhere. That's
mm,
that's why he felt the impetus to go through the hypnotherapy. So yeah, that was my oldest client. Um, so in my hypnotherapy business, that tends to be more face to face. I'm mainly working with things like the stress, anxiety, phobias, sleep issues.
mm,
They're the things that are really like a pressing issue that are somehow stopping people from doing what they want to do, or, there's some urgency to it.
mm,
And then, like I said, that sort of moves on into the coaching work, which is a more overall, I think, looking at your whole life and thinking, where do I want to be? Where am I now? What is it that's holding me back? So my signature coaching program for women is my 12-week journey to balance.
mm,
And that's a really deep dive into all of that stuff, the things holding you back, the stories we tell ourselves, the negative patterns of behavior. We call it being stuck in superwoman archetype. You're kind of trying to do everything for
mm,
everybody and not really doing very well at any of them.
yeah.
And we look at the impact that they have on keeping us stuck sometimes in really difficult situations. And so in that work, I work with the idea of archetypes.
Mm,
And there's five main ones: the lover, the warrior, the mother, the queen, and the sorceress. And using that balance of different kind of energies, it can really help people to get unstuck.
mm,
And it's kind of really playful. Again, like I say, a lot of my work is quite playful. There's a lot of sort of almost play acting. Again, if you need to be a real queen, if you need to set
mm,
boundaries or say no to people and be really, straight up with people, but that's not in your nature to do that. You can literally put on your crown and your
mm,
cloak and kind of step into that role for a moment to go, right, well, how would the queen deal with this situation?
yeah.
And it gives you access, in the same way, I guess, about, making that next move and what you talked about and just taking the next step. It gives you access to a different kind of energy to tackle a particular situation and gives you confidence in dealing with that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I love the way that those archetypes help people to integrate new habits into their life
Mm,
and the transformation it brings really to people in terms of better jobs, improved relationships, courage to step away from unhealthy situations or leaving habits behind, and all that. A lot of it's about finding more room for balance and joy, I guess.
yeah. 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 I find that really interesting. I haven't really studied archetypes or anything like that, but the way you describe it, I can see. I'm imagining that people probably have like, for lack of a better word, their default archetype,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then I can see how uh, them having an awareness that these other archetypes exist, and then kind of giving themselves permission to have access to those, and then calibrating themselves when they're in a situation. How are they presenting, and then having the opportunity to, like you said, well, if you need to put on your crown,
yeah,
you can do that.
yeah, exactly.
You mentioned women in midlife. It's my wife and I are have been empty nesters for the last couple of years, I guess, with my kids off at university. My daughter's about to graduate and move home. So I'm wondering,
Oh,
is that part of this midlife transition that people go through in terms of, um, I'll speak for my own experience with our kids leaving, but it's like, oh yeah, we're a couple again. Like,
yeah, yeah,
and for my wife, she's obviously still a mom, but she doesn't have to do, when the kids aren't here, she doesn't have to do all the mom stuff
yeah,
that
yeah,
she normally would do. So it's kind of she's had a great time rediscovering her individuality, I guess, and what she
yeah.
likes doing.
I think so. I think there's a lot of recalibration goes on, and of course, a lot of people, actually relationships break down at that point.
Mm,
And I think it can be really hard. I do work a lot with the menopause with women
mm,
specifically. But what's really interesting about that is a lot of my stuff is more general because the menopause in sort of Western medical sense, it's just the point when you haven't had a period for 12 months.
mm,
It's really like it's one moment in time. And if you look at other cultures, like in Japan, for instance, where the process of aging tends to be revered a little bit more, older people are seen as being wise rather than past it.
yeah.
And so they don't really have a word that translates as menopause, but they have a word specifically for women. I think it's konenki,
Mm,
and it actually means that transition from your 40s to your 60s, and it actually translates as sort of a time of renewal or change. And I think men go through that as well. Men do have changing hormones in midlife, and they have all those other pressures that women are facing with kids growing up and leaving home and having to adjust to not being that parent. And then, you might have the whole aging parent stuff going on as well. I think we get really squashed in midlife, men and women.
yeah.
So yeah, a lot of my work is around that, navigating who am I? Who am I showing up as in my life? Who do I want to be when I don't have these constraints? So how do I manage these constraints with my aging parents or the other demands on me?
Mm,
So I think it's a really exciting time to be working with. There's a lot going on and a lot of beautiful tweaks that you can help people through to really step into who they want to be in this stage of our lives when we do have wisdom. Look at us, we're
yeah.
sitting here and people are listening to what we've got to say.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and I think it's lovely to celebrate that.
Yeah. I love it. It's probably fair to say that me becoming a coach is part of my midlife crisis or transition,
Yeah.
leaving the corporate world behind and
Yeah.
yeah, stepping into what it is that I want to do and um, who I want to be, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to be in your life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's very empowering to know that you can do it. I mean, it's easy it can be easy to fall into kind of the societal norms and like, I know I have friends who like still can't believe like I left my, what they think is a secure job. um, uh, and when I tell them that job security is an illusion, they're like, yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah,
But
it is there, and then it happens to people, and
yeah,
yeah, that can
yeah,
be a big adjustment. I'm
yeah.
actually looking at. I want to expand the work I do with supporting more men,
Mm,
particularly around single dads. That's
yeah.
really an area of interest for me at the moment. In that same way that I think men are talking more about mental health, we're
Mm,
seeing a lot more discussion around it. It's a really great step forward. But I think, particularly around being a parent, if I think about single dads, in my hypnobirthing work, I found that a lot of guys, things had changed in one generation. So my dad wasn't even present at the hospital when I was born.
mm,
He waited at home and then they phoned home and all
yeah.
that stuff. And in one generation, suddenly we expect the dads to be there at the birth,
Mm,
but they're not given the tools or the role,
yeah.
and they're a little bit. That's a really hard place to be. Giving birth is really hard work, but when you're doing it, you're kind of just doing it. And I think being an observer or being the person who's supposed to be supporting, it can be really difficult. And then that carries through into parenting. Um, most families now, both parents need to work,
Mm,
whether it's full-time, part-time, but most parents are out at work. And so I think dads have been expected to step up a lot more in the home. And this is where I work with archetypes as well with men. Because men, we all have the capacity to be nurturing, to be that parent figure, the father or the mother. Um, and societally, I don't think men have had room for that traditionally. They haven't had the role models. So I
mm,
think it's really exciting to be exploring actually what is going for men, through the parenting years, through the midlife years. because there's the expectations on you have changed, I think, a lot really quickly.
Yeah.
And it's been hard to keep up with that.
Yeah. 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 I like what you're saying. I mean, what's occurring to me too in terms of this realm of expectations is there's kind of like societal expectations, and then there could be like spousal expectations
Yeah.
or your partner, and then there's also our kids' expectations of what they want from their parents. And just when you're just talking about being there for childbirth, I know I was there for both my kids, and probably two of the most amazing moments of my life. Um, and not that I didn't have respect for my wife beforehand, but certainly witnessing her give birth to those two babies was, you know, a humbling event for
Mhm.
me in terms of my relationship with her, and nothing but respect and admiration for what women have to go through in the
But
birthing
equally for you to be there,
process.
to be that support. You know, my
Yeah.
husband was amazing when our kids were born. I don't think I could have done it without him. And yeah, I was working hard. I'm not going to deny that. But
Yeah.
I have actually been birth support for other women as part of my
Mm.
hypnobirthing work. It's really, really hard work being the support person too.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And that, well, yeah. And then throughout the whole, I mean, where were we? We were somewhere the other day, and somebody had an infant with them, like a newborn, and it was crying and stuff. And we were joking about how many years it's been since we heard, that specific cry, which,
Yeah.
whatever it meant they were hungry or needed their diaper change or whatever. But yeah, we were reminiscing about those early years with the kids, and it's one of those phases in our lives where like, how did we even do that?
I know.
and and have jobs and
Yes.
and maintain our sanity and stuff. But we got through it. So
We did. Well, that's the
yeah,
point where that was my sort of transition was after I had my children. I was quite old. I was 38 when I had my second.
yeah.
And it was at that point that I transitioned out of teaching and
Mm,
into being self-employed. And I did that with two young kids and no family support and no sleep. And I look
yeah.
back and think, wow, we're amazing.
Yeah, it's a great testament to our resilience
Yeah.
and capacity to get things done. Yeah. Well, it's funny when I remember when my kids were born, and I worked with a bunch of ladies at the office, and I would come in with, and they were a bit older than me, but I'd come in with all these stories about what was going on, and they'd be like, "Yeah, we don't really remember it being like that and stuff." What occurred to me was like, "Oh, I think this is probably some like um, mental apparatus that happens with us is that we forget because
Yeah,
if you didn't forget how hard it was, you would only ever have one kid."
absolutely. You just blank it out. Go, yeah, it
Yeah,
was fine.
yeah. That's you already shared some examples, but I'm curious if there's one or two more you'd like to share with us about whether it's the hypnotherapy or the coaching, or maybe an example from one of your retreats of how it's made a difference in somebody's life, or even share a personal example of how
Yeah, I mean,
coaching's helped
it's
you.
loads. I've been doing this a long time, but I actually got an email recently from a previous client, and it's been a few years since we worked together, and
Mm,
I'd kind of checked in to see how she was, and she just sent me the most gorgeous email. She just said it was doing the work with me was utterly transformative in my personal life and career, and hey, who doesn't want to hear that?
mm,
But she told me that she'd published a book. It had been a massive ambition of hers for a long time, and she was so proud that she's actually done that now. She set up a load of projects. She managed to get external funding, which was a huge deal in academia, especially for a woman.
mm,
She found the courage to talk to a boss about her career, what she wanted from a job. She said she set out some really difficult demands.
mm,
It was interesting she put in as well. I mean, I don't promote the whole sports thing, but she actually wrote to me that she's taken up running and strength training. She's really enjoying it. So clearly, my enthusiasm about
yeah,
keeping, I guess I talk about keeping healthy on all sorts of those physical and emotional levels.
yeah,
Um, she said she's become so much better at asking for what she needs and resisting that temptation to slip into the role of superwoman, which is that all-encompassing archetype
mm,
where you're just running on empty.
yeah,
And she just wrote, I don't think I would have been able to achieve any of these things before our coaching sessions. And she feels so much more positive and in control of her life than she did before. And that's wonderful, isn't it? When we actually get this feedback for the real
mm,
life, what's been going on since you stopped working with a client.
yeah,
I think it's why I do it. I'll be
yeah,
honest.
absolutely, absolutely. And I don't know if you get this sense, but when I get feedback like that, there's obviously, you know, an element of pride and accomplishment as a coach, but at the same time, there's a recognition that like they are the ones who did all the work.
Yeah. Yeah. She
They're
went away for all those years. They like
yeah,
2, 3 years since we worked. She's gone away and
yeah,
she's done all that.
yeah,
That's cool, isn't
yeah.
it?
And it doesn't diminish the role that we play in helping kind of point people in that direction and giving them the skills and the tools that they need to, you know, um, to accomplish what they want to accomplish. Even the idea that, because it sounds to me like the way you described that was, um, you know, she very much has a mindset now of being able to create the life that she wants.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
our role as the creators of our own lives is a very powerful direction to point people in.
It is. I think it's a cornerstone of my coaching is that the people I work with, I do not view them as broken or
Mm,
needing fixing in any way. That is not my job to fix them.
yeah,
It's my job to hear them, hold that space for them when they
mm,
get out all of the difficult things, and then literally coach them through the tools that they have, giving them tools that maybe they didn't realize they have, or adding to their tool set. But it's about saying to someone, you are absolutely wonderful as you are. Go and take your wonderful uniqueness out into the world and do the things you want to do. And yeah, that's a beautiful thing that we get to do. I'm very grateful for that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's. I was talking to somebody earlier today about the ripples that we send out into the world, whether it's through a conversation like this. Like, who knows? Somebody watching this conversation gets an inkling of inspiration. Maybe they contact one of us, or they hire their own coach, somebody else to coach them, or they just have the spark of an idea, like, oh yeah, maybe I can do what I want, and then those ripples pass through, and because their friends, family, colleagues see them change and transform, and then it just goes from there. That's what I'm excited about. Is just the I don't know, this profession kind of can help elevate
Yeah.
the whole world kind of in an interesting way.
Yeah, just one little ripple at a time. It's
Yeah,
it's a beautiful
absolutely,
analogy.
absolutely. Um, yeah, I'm curious if there was one thing you'd want people to take away from this conversation, or one thing to leave them with. What would that, if you had to boil it down to one thing, what would that be?
I think it would be that you don't need to keep waiting for the right moment to sort your stuff out. You don't need to wait for the right moment to actually take that action. Everyone deserves to have help, and there is help out there for everyone, and none of us need to do this alone. I
Mm,
have a coach. I'm always in coaching because, yeah, we need that support.
yeah,
So take the first step.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've joked with a few of my clients, like you thought you were hiring a life coach, but you were actually hiring a coach for life. Like it's,
Yeah.
the every season, every year, every part of our life presents different challenges, and I don't know, having the support of a coach, um, as a coach and as a client of coaches is just so much well easier and more fun than doing it by myself. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And I really love because I've worked with quite a lot of children and teens.
Mm,
And there's a lad I started working with when he was 15 and he's now 29.
wow.
And what was so gorgeous about that, he was really struggling with depression at the time. He was on antidepressants at the age of 15.
Mm,
And I worked with him really, quite intensively at that point. And then he went away and he went to uni. And then what happens now is he just thinks it's normal that if he hits one of those bumps in the road, he gets back in touch, we catch up, I help him through that. And I thought that, that generation that just see it as like going to the gym almost.
yeah,
I need a little bit of help to get fit again, or, I've got a little bit unfit, or I just need this. It's like, yeah, I'll just get in touch with Lucy and that's it.
yeah,
I
I
think
love
that's
that. Yeah,
great. I think that's
it's great what you're pointing to is like um the shift in kind of cultural norms, that mental health is no different than physical health. Like you're gonna stub your toe or bruise your knee or break an arm or do something, but whatever the mental equivalent of that is,
yeah,
and then it's okay to it's okay to need help, and it's okay to ask for help. And yeah, I hope that's what I hope for my kids and
yeah,
eventually their kids and so on. Like this is, yeah, it's just
absolutely.
it's completely normal and acceptable and expected. It's fantastic, and the world will be a better place for it, I think.
It will.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, Lucy. If people are interested in learning more about what you're up to, retreats you have going on, I don't know, anything and all things Lucy Atkinson related, where do they find you?
It's on my website, which is just lucyatkinson.org.uk. I am on LinkedIn. I love to engage with people and find out what's going on. But yeah, the website would be the place to start.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed meeting you and hearing about all the things you've got going on, and and you've given me a lot of the nice memories to think back on. I haven't thought about the birth of my kids in quite some time, so it's a lovely trip down memory lane.
Thank you. It's been lovely.
Yeah, great. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.